Guest today is someone near and dear to my heart. Zeesha is a proud patriot and an even prouder Jew. Originally from Beaver, Pennsylvania, he's traveled and lived all over the US and some parts of Europe to serve his great nation as a captain in the United States Air Force. This podcast was started per his request on his journey to find more meaningful and fulfilling and positive content in his life, specifically with the lens of education, spirituality, and Judaism. He's agreed to join me today to start off the series of interviews, and I very much look forward to speaking with him today in front of you all.
So ancient yet so bold, questions and answers, a dance of the soul. Hey. Tattoo Rabbi, Tattoo Rabbi, hey. Tattoo Rabbi, come and see layers of life, the mystery. Tattoo Rabbi, Tattoo Rabbi.
Welcome to the Tattoo Rabbi podcast. I wanted to start by asking you for a brief bio of who you are. Where did you grow up? What was life like? Memorable moments as a child, and go up to the point of what got you interested in serving your country.
So born in Beaver, Pennsylvania, as you have already mentioned, which is a small town outside of Pittsburgh. Zane and I were the only Zane. Same. We were the only Jewish family in our hometown, and so our parents took it. Our parents took it upon themselves to make sure that we knew that we were Jews in a town full of non-Jews, which is easier said than done. But our mom used to come in every Hanukkah and talk about Hanukkah to our classes and make latkes and cookies and really make sure that we were not bullied, I guess, so much as we could have been for being the only Jews in our town, which was very nice of her. I appreciate that. Grew up going to shul at our grandparents' synagogue over in Ohio, which was more or less a reform shul looking back, but we always dressed up and looked nice, and it was a good way to get the family together once a week, as much as I disliked going to services growing up. Had a bar mitzvah at 13 at a different shul that was a little bit closer by, and then more or less stopped going to services until college, I suppose, or being as involved in Jewish life. Zane and I both did the Diller Teen Fellows outside of Pittsburgh, for those who are familiar with that. Highly recommend that program for every Jewish teen, if they could. Unfortunately, not everybody can join. Went to college in Cleveland, and when my brother started going to the same college, we started going to Chabad together, and that's really where I learned that Judaism was more than just going to services once a week. There's the spiritual side of Judaism, or not spiritual side, the
Esoteric,
yeah, sure, esoteric side of Judaism.
philosophical.
Spiritual is not the word I want to use. Hold on a second.
Yeah, but thesaurus.
Purchased this book, Judaism for Dummies. It's actually quite good. Even for educated Jews, it's not that I'm educated, so to speak, but not the holidays, not that one. Where are we at here? Mysticism. Jewish mysticism is the word I wanted to find. I learned more about the mystical side of Judaism, which I didn't realize was a thing before then. And when I was at college, actually, I guess going more away from the Judaism side of my life and more towards the professional side, so to speak, um, decided I wanted to join the Air Force, the US Air Force, and caveat everything that I may or may not say throughout this podcast as all views are my own and not the views of the United States government or the United States Air Force, and don't reflect any other views except my own. So I don't get in trouble for anything that I say. Kind of, there's still some limitations on that, so I got to be a little bit careful. But anyways, decided to join the U.S. Air Force. Have a long history of family service. Our dad was in the Army. Our grandfather was in the Army. Our great grandfather was in the Navy. We've got cousins in the Marines. Great uncles that went to the Coast Guard. Uh,
Another grandfather in the Air Force,
Another grandfather in the Air Force briefly.
briefly.
Uh, Army, Navy, Marines. I think that covers just about everybody. So I decided to join the Air Force, continue on the legacy of family service, and I've been serving in the Air Force since the summer of 2018. So just over 7 years now.
Amazing. Okay, I want to touch on two things. One, can you talk a little bit more about your struggle of going to services as a child? Like where that came from? Like what was the struggle for you? What did you not enjoy about it?
Uh, I think that looking back, like sitting in services, so Reform services and Orthodox services, while the intent is very similar, the way that they're structured is different. And the culture, I suppose, around these services is different. In Orthodox services, and I didn't realize this until I started going to Chabad in college and went to one or two of their services outside of the Chabad on campus. But kids are running around, kids are being allowed, kids are just allowed to be kids at these services, at least up until their bar mitzvah at 13. It pretty much Reform conservative services, the kids are expected to be quiet and sit there and pray, which was great. I learned a lot because that was really my weekly dose of Judaism, I guess, as opposed to Orthodox Jews who have Judaism interspersed throughout their life. And so when that is your only opportunity to learn, I think the expectation is to sit there and learn, which is fine. Looking back now as an adult, it just was frustrating as a child to have to sit there and shut up and find ways to entertain myself for an hour and a half. Or when you go to services for Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur and you're there all day long, you're like, what am I doing here as a kid? And it is difficult to let a kid be a kid, or make sure that they have to sit there and learn and not be a kid, I guess, for like 8 hours worth of services. It's impossible. And so while I enjoyed seeing my family and my cousins during that time, it was also a little frustrating, especially as a younger kid, at least until we started going to Sunday school, and really learning how to participate more in a service as we were like 9, 10, 11, 12. Before that, I was like, I don't want to go do this stuff. This is ridiculous. And then after we were bar mitzvahed, like it was kind of getting into the point where we were both playing football, and football games were Friday nights, right? And we had practice Saturday mornings, the day after football, or the day after football games. And so that kind of took the priority. But the thing about being bar mitzvahed, at least the choice our parents gave us, was you're considered an adult in the Jewish community, and the choices that you make are yours to make, whether that is participating in the service or choosing to participate in other ways or choosing not to participate at all. And I think we both kind of chose not to really participate at all at that point. I mean, we didn't really get along, so to speak, with the rabbi that was at the synagogue that we were at, which we didn't really have many choices. It was the closest synagogue. Any other synagogues were an hour and a half away, as opposed to 30 minutes. And our mom, is a bit of a schemer in a good way, and kind of schemed us into joining the Diller Teen Fellows at one point or another, which allowed us to maintain some ties to the Jewish community at like 15 or 16 years old, or 16 or 17, between 15 and 17, in more of a secular way, I think. But nonetheless, it was the first time for both of us to travel to Israel and really get a taste of what Israel is like, which was incredible. And the organization does unbelievably awesome things for young Jewish leaders and Jewish teens that are in the community, and gives them an opportunity to do things that others have not. So, um, all that to say, like it, even until I started going to Chabad, I didn't really enjoy going to services. I didn't really connect, so to speak. Like I like all the songs and I liked all the tunes that we had. And now when I go to services and they're not the same tunes, I don't really like singing the songs, if I'm being honest. I still like going. I just it's different to me, and I'm not like any human, not somebody who likes change all that much, despite the fact that my life is full of change, being in the military. Um, going to Chabad services or going to Orthodox Jewish services, it is more or less the same no matter where you go. Ashkenazi versus Sephardi, you got some differences there, but uh, outside of that, the path to becoming more observant. Uh, you know, I enjoyed where I was at, and I very much enjoy where I'm at now. It's everybody's got their own path. It's a little bit of a rant that got
No,
off.
that's good. That's perfect. Thank you. And when you got to college, you said there was this mysticism, or as we would say, like Kabbalah, or more specifically Hasidus. Like what exactly about that, like, kind of was like surprising or different, or drew you in?
Yeah. So we took a class. Maybe you weren't in it. It was a JLI class, maybe.
Britannia.
Yeah, Tanya class that the rabbi at the Case Chabad put on. Um, and growing up, Jewish mysticism was never part of our like Jewish education. At least I don't remember it being part of the Jewish education. Before your bar mitzvah, you're really focused on, like, especially in Reform services, I think, as opposed to Orthodox services or Reform or Conservative, you typically lead the whole service on Friday night and Saturday morning, which I've not. I've been to like one Orthodox bar mitzvah, and it was they just read from the Torah, and that was it. And so everything up until your 13th birthday is very much focused on, do you know, not the content or the why of the prayers, but do you just know the prayers, and do you just know how to read from the Torah? It's not so much about the content or the why or any of the commentary on it, which is arguably far more important, I think, than just learning what you're doing, and should probably be a part of the education leading up to a bar mitzvah, right? Unfortunately, there's only so many days in the week when you're not going to Jewish or Jewish day school the way that Orthodox Jews go. And so, our Sunday schools were full of like, all right, do you just know how to read or sing the prayers? And we're going to try to give you some Hebrew language training, very little of which I remember to this day, which is why I do Duolingo now, at least for the last 3 or 4 months, trying to learn a little bit more Hebrew. Especially if I go visit you in Israel, I would like to know a little bit. I don't know everything, but at least know.
Eifo Shirotim.
Yeah, at least Lucha means like, hey, excuse me. Like at least I know that now.
No one says that here, by the way.
Right.
That's how they know you're a foreigner. You
Right.
say that.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, they know I'm on Duolingo and I'm not an Israeli. I'm also not loud and boisterous, but that might be, whatever. So anyways, we go to college, and the rabbi there says, hey, there's this Jewish mysticism thing. And I'm like, I like what? Like Judaism to me has always been very black and white, I suppose. Like there's debate, and that like you can read one section of the Tanya or the Torah or whatever, and you've got 7 different commentaries all on the same section. You could have 7 different commentaries on the same word or the same letter, and why a specific letter was chosen. Or a specific word when they could have used a different word. And so Jewish mysticism, looking at, each letter in the Hebrew, it has an associated number with it, and maybe these numbers add up to a different number and all these things. So it takes things another level or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, etc., levels deeper. And I was like, so like, yeah, there is debate in Judaism, but there's not just debate at the surface level. There's debates at the nth level, depending on which commentator decides that how deep they want to go. There's Jewish commentary on reincarnation or heaven and hell, or the Jewish versions of heaven and hell, or what the Torah says, if anything, about those things. There's just so many deeper, different levels that allow you to kind of interpret things the way that feels most right to you, which I think is great, because there's many other religions where like it is black and white. It is and it is not. And if you don't agree with that, well, it's not up for you to decide. There's only one in Catholicism. There's the Pope, who is the end all be all for interpretations. We've had how many different sages and scholars that have interpreted things a little bit differently, more or less the same message, but a little bit differently as to why things are. And that gives us the bandwidth to live our lives Jewishly, how we most feel is appropriate for us, I think. So anyways, all that to say, the little taste of Jewish mysticism that we got in college has definitely opened doors to me to explore that a little bit further.
Nice. So along those same lines of, it seems like that education, which is a Torah value, a Jewish value, is very important. I know it's something our parents also instilled in us and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like you've taken this pursuit on a little bit more deeply, maybe. I was wondering if that is like the Torah value that you find most deeply resonates with you, or maybe there's another Torah value that you feel more connected to.
I would say the two that I connect most deeply with, would education definitely being one of them, and I think that's a product of our parents. Both of them are a product of our parents. Education being one of them, whether that's secular education or Jewish education. I'm going back to school to get another master's degree because, like, why not? I had the time, and if I'm like, the best use of that time to me was to go get further educated. For better or worse, sometimes I love it, sometimes it's miserable, as any pursuit to better yourself is. From a Jewish perspective, as you have become more religious, I have felt more comfortable in pursuing a Jewish education, whether that be listening to podcasts or reading a book like this, which is very high level, but at least there's so many different topics that they cover in here that allow me to figure out ways that I can dive deeper into certain areas, whether that's through Chabad or various sages. I've got a number of Jewish books that I can read. Unfortunately, I think most of them are in storage right now, as I don't really have the space for them. But I've got this one, so we'll start there. And I Google things, and I've learned things from this that I didn't even know were a thing. There was a heretic, I suppose, in the 1700s or 1600s who declared that he was the Mashiach, and I'm like, I've never heard this before. And so I went into a dive of this.
Shabtai
Yeah,
Tzvi.
yeah, and he ended up converting to Islam, and I was like, well, clearly this guy ain't it. But at that time, rumors spread very quickly, and so he had a huge following until he converted to Islam, and even then, some people converted to Islam with him who were his followers. So, anyways, so education being one of the biggest things that I connect with. There's a seemingly infinite amount of knowledge out there to learn, whether that's Jewish or otherwise, and so why not continue to consume as much as I can and just keep learning. The other thing I think our parents really that I connect with as a result of our parents is probably Tikkun Olam. Our parents were really big on volunteering in the community, and that is something that I find value in still to this day. Unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day, and so I don't do it as much as I would love to. But there are always opportunities to give back, and whether that's donating some money to your local Chabad organization, there's your plug, or donating time to go plant trees somewhere, or go to a food bank, which is something that we did all the time growing up, and just packing food for folks that don't have as much as we have. There's a million different ways to give back to the community and help prepare the world, give tzedakah. We did that every Hanukkah. One of the nights of Hanukkah, we spent rolling coins and deciding which charity that our year-long worth of savings was going to go to. And so probably education and tikkun olam are the two things that I most resonate with from a Jewish value perspective or Jewish mitzvah perspective more than almost anything else.
Nice. So along those same lines, would you say that Judaism played into your desire to join the military? Do you see any parallels between military life and Judaism, like shared values, things like tikkun olam, giving back to your community, serving your country, things like that?
Yeah, so I would say that Judaism didn't really play a big role in me joining the military. The family thing kind of played a bigger role. Well, maybe a little bit it did in a roundabout way. So one of the reasons I joined the military was because I wanted my job to matter and wanted to be a part of something bigger than myself. Very, very Jewish philosophy there, I suppose, or very Jewish values. I had a lot of internships in college, worked for 3 or 4 different companies making widgets, valves, welders. And I was like, who really cares? Who needs a welder? Who needs a valve? And yeah, some people do. And it's a very valuable piece of somebody's life. But being in the military, the job I do every day, it protects the freedoms of the United States. It protects the freedoms of our allies and partners in other countries. It helps save the lives of many Americans, whether they realize it or not. It provides them the rights to say things that I disagree with. But that's what I joined for. I might not agree with what you're saying, but we have freedom of speech in this country, right? And I will defend your right to safely and appropriately say those things. That's the way it is. I might disagree with you. And Judaism is full of disagreements and full of debate. And that's one of the beauties of Judaism. But like, for example, one of the Air Force values is service before self. And so, putting others before yourself, and whether that's in the workplace or in Judaism or just in life is I think one of my personal values. And that is a product of our parents, which is ultimately a product of the Jewish education that they had. And decades or centuries of Judaism that have been instilled in them and passed down to you and me, even though we might look a little bit different right now. We did not at one point.
It's true.
But while Judaism did not play a direct role in me joining, I think in maybe a roundabout way or a more subtle way, it definitely did.
Nice. Thank you. So how do you personally understand the idea then of purpose?
Oh. I think purpose is something that everybody has to define for themselves. What motivates you to get out of bed every day? It is a very personal definition to different people. For me, the purpose that I have while I'm not at least when it comes to work, while it is not a direct combat role, so to speak, I'm in a very much support role. A lot of folks can't do their jobs without me doing my job, whether they realize it or not. They can't do their jobs without me doing my job effectively and doing it well. And so while I may play a role behind the scenes, my purpose is to wake up every day, go to work, churn out some products that folks can use that are pulling triggers, so that they can
Figuratively and literally.
Yeah. You got a pilot in an airplane who's got to pickle a weapon, and then fire it off, right? If I don't do my job well, maybe that weapon doesn't come off the rail. And so they have either failed to take out a target or they failed to take out an enemy, and now their life is at risk. And so understanding that my job helps protect people's lives is something that gives me purpose, which everybody just has to define that for themselves. Even the guy flipping burgers at McDonald's has got purpose in life. He is providing sustenance to everybody. From a Jewish perspective, Hashem is everywhere. Hashem is in everything, right? And so no matter what you do, everything has purpose because Hashem is in everything that you do. Hashem is in the lady who poured my coffee this morning to give me the energy to do this. Like even the most basic things have purpose. And so if somebody is able to figure that out, or at least reconcile that or understand that for themselves, then hey, who am I to judge? Do what you got to do, assuming that it's, lawful and right and all these things. Don't, there's no purpose in doing the bad things, or maybe there is, but I don't like the purpose so much. Yeah, that's a difficult question, I guess, with no preparation.
Yeah, that's good. I didn't give you, by the way, I made all the questions today. Like I was on my
I figured that sounds about right. Yeah. In line with your personality.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, okay, so Judaism has definitely played a significant role in your life, seemingly for a very long time since you were born. But me personally, I've seen over the past 2-3 years that there's kind of been a significant growth or an interest in your in your interest as well as your daily practice. So I was just wanted you talk more about that.
Yeah. So I've definitely become more observant over the last, definitely over the last 6 or 7 months. It's September now, so probably over the last 12 months. Rapping tefillin every day. Shout out to the Aleph Institute for sending me a free pair of tefillin through their military program. Very much appreciate them for that. I don't know that they'll ever see this, but in the case that they do,
I have connections. I'll send it to them.
All right, let me give them the appropriate shout out there. The Chabad rabbi here in the Destin area, Rabbi Tenenbaum, Scheiss Tannenbaum, I believe, has done a good job of outreach to me at the base and other Jews at the community who always inviting me to services or to his house for dinner, and has definitely made me feel a part of the Jewish community here in the Destin, Fort Walton Beach area. And there are not many of us. I would say that there are probably 10 to 20 Jews in their 20s and early 30s that are here. There's another rabbi over in Pensacola. It's just a little bit farther away, so it's easier for me to get to the one that's closer by. But a lot of this journey started because you became more religious, and as you became more religious, I felt more comfortable expressing my Judaism, whether that be publicly or even privately. Rapping tefillin every day has been a great mitzvah that I've been able to do. I'm not perfect. I forget a day here and there, especially when I'm traveling all the time. It happens, but sometimes I'm doing it right before sundown in an airport, right before I board an airplane, which I've done a number of times just because there's a lot of hecticness in traveling all the time. But we still get it done more days than I do not. We're looking at like maybe one day that I forget every 3 or 4 weeks. And I've always every day before work, but you becoming more public maybe with your Judaism, as the tattoo rabbi, as the guy who's got this persona, everybody knows you. It has made me feel more comfortable exploring and expressing my Judaism in ways where, when we were the only Jews in our hometown, it's not that I was hiding that I was being Jewish. I just, didn't express it to my friends. At our bar mitzvahs, everybody wanted yarmulkes. I had like 30 kids from high school or middle school come to our bar mitzvahs, and everybody wanted yarmulkes. And so I was borrowing them from the local synagogue for extended periods of time.
Still borrowing
Because my friends were interested in Judaism, right? Which was really cool at the time. But, between bar mitzvah and graduating, it's not like there were opportunities to continue to express my Judaism outwardly to my friends, at least not in any way that wouldn't naturally kind of fit in with everything else we were doing, which was really just playing football and riding bikes and being active. But as we went to college, Judaism picked up a new depth that it didn't have before, either through mysticism or just the Chabad rabbi holding classes and being like, hey, like it's not just these words, like there are different levels to this. And then as I, was in Los Angeles and moved to Florida, it has just continued to grow, but definitely exponentially so within the last year as we've been attending more. You moving to Crown Heights when you were there was a big one, coming to visit you and seeing like, oh, there's a lot of Jews here. The mitzvah tanks and all these things. I was like, this is if I wasn't Jewish, it was a bit overwhelming for me, and I'm Jewish. Just never having experienced that before. But the Chabad events that I've attended, the one back in January, it wasn't Meta Chabad, it was they had like a
CYP, Chabad Young
yeah,
Professionals.
Chabad Young Professionals. I shout out to them. I've only attended one of their events, and it was like a national level event.
It's international, actually.
International, yeah, because Canadians were there.
And people from Russia and Israel
Yeah,
and
yeah,
South
yeah.
America, they're all over. Yeah,
Many people that were there. I only met some
Europe.
Canadians, but it was such a cool event to be a part of and to be around a large number of young Jews, which is just not something that I had experienced before. In Los Angeles, you've got the Meet Jew community that kind of popped up during COVID. But that's more of like, hey, we're trying to like meet up, and it's kind of like a CYP, but not really. CYP doesn't really have much of a presence. At least they didn't when I was there in Los Angeles. They're starting up a little bit.
Mhm.
But being able to be around a ton of young Jewish professionals that I had not been around before and feel like I felt a little bit out of place because I'd never been around other Jews like to that level, at least not other Jews my age. And so seeing the way that other Jews practice, or being able to do Shabbat services and Havdalah with hundreds of other young Jewish professionals was like, I'm getting tingles thinking about it, right? Like it was such a spiritual, meaningful experience that I just hadn't had. And then being able to do that with you, being one of the keynote speakers there, having your own Reagan, I was like, oh my God, I knew this guy was popular, but not like this. And so just being able to, have that experience, to me, allowed me to feel more comfortable in expressing my Judaism and continue to grow in that aspect of my life.
Nice. I love that. And along those lines, would you say that you see yourself as a role model, even in small ways?
No, I don't. But I'm sure other people would disagree with that. It's one of those things where, like, I think if you see yourself as a role model, maybe you're not really as much of a role model as you think you are. It's like if you're Mashiach, or if somebody's Mashiach, they don't go around screaming that I'm the guy, right?
Actually,
They do.
they do.
I'm just saying the one guy did that.
The one guy who did that ended up,
And
yeah,
it wasn't the case. Like,
that's
so
true.
to
That's
me,
true. It's true.
when you are expressing outwardly like you're the dude, you're probably not the guy. That's just my perspective. Like the person that is the role model, the person that is the tzaddik, they do it by their actions and the things that they like, the way that they hold themselves and their education and all these various things. To Hun Olam, them saying, "Hey, I'm a tzaddik." Well, it feels to me to be incorrect. You say you're a tzaddik, you show you're a tzaddik by doing the things that a tzaddik does, not by saying you're the guy. That's just my perspective.
Sure.
And so,
Go ahead.
yeah, and so while I don't necessarily see myself as a role model, maybe I am for somebody, whether that be at work, maybe not in Judaism, maybe I don't know. I like to think that what I'm doing every day, expresses Jewish values and expresses good things, putting others before myself, or participating in Tikkun Olam, or service in the community. that to me is setting an example for others maybe to follow. But I'm not going to stand up there and say, hey, I'm the guy, I'm the role model that you should be following. I,
That's fair.
I
That's
just,
fair.
I'm not
Do
that guy.
do you do you see that your life is connected with the broader Jewish people and humanity? Do you see it as being intercorrelated,
Intercalated, yeah, nice new
intercalated?
word. Nice new word you're making up.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that whether I see it or not, every Jew is connected with every other Jew, uh, in that has ever
Would,
existed.
okay, would you say that your actions have influence then over all these other Jews that you're connected to?
Yeah, every Jew's actions has,
So
yes.
you are an influencer.
Every Jew is an influencer.
Every Jew is an influencer. Every
Yes,
Jew
yes.
is then also a role model because you
I
are
I
influencing.
suppose so. I suppose from that perspective that's
Don't
correct.
run away from your responsibility.
I'm not running away from it. I'm just saying that I'm not going to stand up here and say I'm a role model or I'm an influencer,
But you are.
I suppose so. You could say that. I wouldn't say that about myself. I would say you're a role model and
You
an
just said it.
influencer
You just said it. You just agreed with me.
in a roundabout way. In a very Jewish way, I agreed with you.
I love
Disagree,
it.
but we actually agree.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. A few more questions in terms of spirituality. Um, do you does prayer and meditation or reflection play any sort of role in your life? Is that like a practice of yours? Yes, no, it can be like, no, I don't do that at all. It's passing, happens randomly, not even on purpose.
Uh, I would say unless so prayers in a formal perspective, I think outside of wrapping tefillin every day, where you say the Shema and the Vahafta, and there's some extra prayers at the end of my prayer book that I got from Chabad. Uh, this is the tefillin book. It's a little tiny one. Highly recommend it. Uh, Outside of that, not particularly. I would like to start meditating a little bit. Meditating is an important part of Jewish mysticism and Jewish practice in general. The more that I've learned, and so I would like to incorporate that into my life, whether that's for a couple minutes or 5 minutes. But outside of shul, there isn't much formal praying. Outside of shul and wrapping tefillin, there isn't much formal praying that I do. At the end of wrapping tefillin, before I put everything away, I do some of my own personal prayers in English. Whether that be for the health and happiness of my friends and family, for any personal things that I might want Hashem's blessing for that are coming up in the near future. That's it's partially a little bit of manifesting, which is a very Jewish thing. The more that I see JLI's Instagram posts and they keep posting about manifesting and how it's actually a Jewish thing, and I didn't know that. And so the I do a little bit of informal, I suppose, personal prayer at the end of wrapping tefillin before I put everything back in the box. Um, thanking Hashem for everything that He's given me and everything that He'll provide in the future. But outside of that, not particularly. I guess I'm not doing Baruch every day or
That sounds like a lot, to be honest. That's more than
yeah,
most
yeah.
people, I would say.
But it's something that's new for me, right? Like I
Sure.
have to wrapping tefillin until March, April of this year. And when we're at the CYP event, and there's this dude up there who's talking about how wrapping tefillin changed his whole life. I'm like, come on, man. Let's be real here for a second. But I'll give credit where credit is due. I've wrapped tefillin, and almost everything I've prayed for has come true.
Wow.
Uh,
Wow.
and
Mazel
so
tov.
um,
So you're manifesting.
I don't want to like jinx it by talking. It's like telling people your birthday wish. You tell people and it doesn't happen. Um, but I will say that either in a roundabout way or maybe not exactly as I prayed for it, but whether that's through manifesting or Hashem is answering my prayers or a mixture of both or none of it. A lot of the stuff that I have prayed for has come to fruition. And I can't remember the original question. Oh, the
That's
formal praying.
perfect.
But all that to say,
By the way, in Judaism, there's two prayers that Jews are liable for every day. Men are liable for two prayers every day. Women are liable for one prayer every day. There's the formal 3 times a day prayer that we're supposed to do: Shachris, Mincha, Maariv,
yeah,
morning, evening, and afternoon and night, evening prayers, including the Shema that you say. So that is one of the laws, and it's bound by time. Because it's time bound, men are obligated to fulfill that. Now, there's
right.
another form of prayer that's spoken about that's a mitzvah that we're required to do, and that's personal prayer, the thing that you're
Oh,
also doing at the end of your when you finish your tefillin every day. So that's another thing, and women are also obligated to have this personal prayer on top of it. So there's actually two forms of prayer. So you're actually doing an extra mitzvah without even
yeah,
realizing.
I didn't even
But
know. Didn't
yeah.
even know.
and it's often also said that meditation is what's done during the formal prayer, the one that's done during the 3 times a day.
Right.
That's when you're supposed to be meditating. It's very hard because we have different ideas of what's meditation. So the Buddhist idea of meditation is empty your mind from everything. You want to have like no thoughts.
Right.
So Jewish meditation is a little bit different in that instead of emptying your mind, we want to laser focus the mind. There should be like one specific thing that you're focusing on the entire time, that while you're saying the words, that's the thing that you're trying to bring out. Yeah. Even if you don't understand what the words you're saying are, if you have in mind this thing that you're trying to manifest, for
Right.
example, that laser beam is the meditation. So your meditation is purposeful and is supposed to be creating things as opposed to just being passive.
It's good to know. Let's use that next time I'm
Little
out.
food for thought. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Which I still have to do.
Um, yeah. Okay. You got time. It's early by you.
It's early. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to follow up with a few more spiritual questions. Do you believe in God?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you do. I think there's a man or a woman up in heaven who is the I don't know, the puppeteer of everything that
Do you
happens.
believe in a creator? Do you believe in a
Yes,
creator, a greater being, a higher being that
I
has
think there's
sort of calculated and formulated the existence that we experience?
a computer simulation. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
To
I
some
think
extent.
I think there's definitely a greater power, a greater energy, whether that, in science and religion are really not that far off. They're very closely interlinked in many ways. And so I think there is a greater energy or a greater power that kind of uh, I don't know if directs people is the right thing, but Hashem in Judaism gives us free will, right? And so to some degree. And so at least it's the thing that I remember. I could be
Yeah. No, it's 100%. We have free will.
so I do think that there is a greater power that I don't know if directs is the right word, but gives us the freedom to make the right choices. Right, I guess is perspective or but gives us the freedom to make choices to either continue to live life in a very positive way, but you also have the choices to live life in a negative way. And I think that's the beauty of what Judaism teaches us is every day we get to wake up and make a choice to further ourselves in Judaism or tikkun olam. And so I don't think that there's somebody who's puppeteering things necessarily in a very specific way, but is maybe guiding us or giving us left and right bounds in which to live, and kind of, like if you're bowling and you've got the things up, you get too close to one and you bounce off, and maybe you go too far to the other one, and hopefully someday you find the path that's somewhere down the middle.
Man. Oh man. So along those same lines, do you think that morality can exist without the belief in God?
I do, but I think morality is a society. Morality is defined based on the society in which you live, and whether that's a Jewish society or a secular society. What some people view as moral and right the Western view of what is moral and right is going to be different than the Chinese view of what's moral and right, or the Russian view, or the Israeli view, or the Arab view for that matter. Something that I saw recently is that even people who we view as evil believe what they're doing is good. And so their perspective of morals and what is right is dramatically different, potentially, from what we view as moral and right. And that is defined partially by, religion is a part of society, right? And so it's defined by the society in which you are raised. And if you're raised in Crown Heights around Orthodox Jews, your view of morals and what is right from an observance perspective is going to be different from the Jew who's raised in, I don't know, Houston, Texas, maybe, or Colorado Springs or Denver. Now, more or less, it's all on the same page because we're all Jewish, but,
And it's anchored to what then?
It's anchored to Judaism, right? It's anchored to your religion.
To Torah.
To Torah, yeah. Right. From a Jewish perspective. But for those that are maybe Christian, their views of morality also kind of tied to Judaism.
To the Torah.
Also
so
tied to Judaism.
Thank you.
Yes.
So goes back to my question. If you don't have the Torah, if you don't have God, this idea of a higher being,
right,
then of something that's bigger than you, then you become the biggest thing. And then where's the morality? Where's that line drawn? Right.
So I guess like from a Buddhist perspective, they've got a different. Now, most religions, formal religions, are, you've got the same 10 commandments, more or less, in every religion. It's just maybe said a little bit differently. Buddhism and Hinduism, I'm sure, have something very similar, where don't kill somebody. Treat your neighbor as you want to treat yourself. There are various things that
universal laws,
or the Noahastic laws, I think is
the Noahide, the 7
Noahide laws,
of, right, the Noahide laws.
Yeah. So
given to all of humanity.
Every religion has those 7 things. Now that originates from Torah, right?
Exactly.
but even for those who are atheist, maybe, their morals are defined on their society. But I guess to get back to your original question, as I'm talking it through my head, society is typically based on the religion in which you're the local religion of theirs. So even if you're atheist, I suppose your morals would probably come from the religion that your society was based upon. So I guess
back to my original question.
Yes.
Do you think morality can exist?
I guess the answer to your question is yes. Again, very Jewish way to get back to your question. So I suppose the answer is yes.
Yeah. There has to be a God in order for there to be some sort of morality, some sort of idea of what that would be, what the baseline would be.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it.
I talked myself to answering your question. Yeah.
I already knew the answer, but I wanted you to also get that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Very Jewish of you to let me there myself.
So along those same lines, I wanted to, many Jews would identify themselves as like a cultural Jew, right? Yeah. Not an observant, they're not a religious Jew. And if you ask like Chabad people, they would say we're really not into labels, because we have this Torah that says what a Jew is and what a Jew isn't. So whether you call yourself a culture Jew or not, doesn't really make a difference. But do you think that Jewish identity without Torah has lasting strength?
I think that it would be difficult to have Jewish culture without Torah. Now, maybe not in a formal way. I considered myself to be a cultural Jew, and still to some degree. Now I'm becoming more observant, but if we're putting labels on things, but a lot of what I believe culturally, I suppose, or what ties Jews to other Jews is typically their basis in Torah. And if it's not for them, maybe their parents' basis in Torah. And if not for them, maybe their grandparents' basis in Torah, but it all comes back to Torah. That is what ties every Jew together. And maybe not you personally, but your parents, and they pass that down to you, or your grandparents, and they pass it down to your parents, and they pass it down to you. And maybe you are not religiously observant in Judaism, but your values and your culture is based in Torah at some point in the past. And so do I think that it can last? I think the answer is yes. Is it difficult? Sure. Especially if you're the only Jew in a town full of non-Jews, you have to try extra hard. Even if you're not observant, you have to try extra hard and arguably I think that it is more difficult to maintain your Jewish identity in a town full of non-Jews as we were, and we both maintained our Jewish identity perfectly fine. You arguably more than me, from an observant perspective, right? But even if I'm not attending services 3 times a week or even every Friday, or before I was wrapping tefillin every day, like I still very much considered myself Jewish, and will be raising my kids in a Jewish in the Jewish faith or in Judaism. Um, but I think it can absolutely last. It is just more difficult to do so.
Okay. So, what role do you think assimilation as well as intermarriage, what significant of a role does that play between the two? One who, Jews who are more identifying with Torah and Torah values and Torah law, or Jews that are not necessarily tied to the Torah in the same way.
Um, what was the first part of that question? There was intermarriage,
Assimilation and intermarriage,
assimilation.
right?
Yeah.
So
So,
I'm
um,
saying like for Jews that are not that are culturally Jewish but don't identify with Torah laws or Torah
right,
values in the same way, assimilation and intermarriage is something that would be deemed okay in their eyes,
right,
or
yeah.
even the better thing to do.
So I think that assimilation to some degree is what has allowed Jews to become so successful, no matter what society they've been a part of. Um, while Torah laws come first, the secondary part of that is what is the law of the land in which you live. Um, and I think that has allowed Jews to maintain some degree of independence in their religion while also becoming a part of the society in which they live, which I think is important. Um, it's important for the success of Jews around the world. Um,
I
so
would
you
say also for the success of the societies
for success of society, yeah, we're pretty
that
good.
the Jews are in. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, as far as intermarriage goes, that's it is obviously a more difficult topic, I think, but I would say that there are many times, I think our mom who converted being a prime example of being more observant than our dad was, arguably. Converts or those who choose to intermarry, as long as they are, all in, so to speak, on Judaism, are arguably more observant many times than those who are raised in Judaism, especially in the non-Orthodox community. Um, uh, Now, if you're trying to do both in a household, like that's probably not going to work, and it's very confusing. Some people make it work, but it definitely takes away from being Jewish. There's only so many Jews in the world, uh, and continuing to, especially nowadays, well, probably at any point in history. Let's be honest. Um, it is more important than ever, from my perspective, to raise Jews, whether that be in a Jewish world or a secular world, and for children to be made aware that they are Jewish. Um, and so, like, yes, intermarriage has always been an issue with Jews, and realistically, the Orthodox community is the one that carries on the Jewish faith. But there are Orthodox Jews who become secular, and there's secular Jews who become Orthodox. It flows both ways. And I don't know at what rate it flows higher than the other. Uh,
I can tell you recently it's what direction it's flowing.
yeah, secular to more religious for sure.
Yes, yes. In
Over
the
the
past
last
2 years
year,
has been 50% increase in Israel of kids being enrolled in religious schools,
right, right, which makes sense, right?
and a 70% increase in people keeping kosher or keeping Shabbat.
Yeah, which is incredible. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate that historically our faith does that when terrible things happen, but when terrible things happen, people become more religious. When things are
Yes.
good, they go away from it. For better or worse, you want things to be good. Unfortunately, you tend to lose some of the observance when things are good, and you get it back when things are bad. That's just the way that things go. People want to find something that they believe in, more than they have in the past when things are bad. When things are good, things are good. What do I need this for?
There's also been an unprecedented increase in Chabad on campus participation and involvement and
Of
things like that,
course.
where a lot of young people that you could say arguably America is not necessarily in a bad place. Maybe
Right.
you would say it is,
Oh,
but
especially over the
there's
last week, people would say,
last week is yeah showing a little bit of chaos.
yeah,
Um, but it seems that there even if, when times are not necessarily bad and tragic things have not necessarily happened, like people now aren't going to Shabbos because of the incidents that have happened in the
right.
past week. But over the past 5, 10 years, we've seen a massive, massive increase, like exponential increase in Jews, especially on college campuses, where there is an emphasis on finding yourself and getting away from your parents and getting away from morals and kind of setting your own path and kind of figuring out things, but getting away from what we might say is like the traditional moral or society that you might have grown up in, and kind of doing your own thing or finding new things or exploring things that aren't necessarily as traditionally moral and things like that.
Less
Um,
kosher.
less kosher, exactly. But we've seen from that specific group, we've seen a large amount of kids, young minds, the future of our future, running in massive ways towards something that's more religious, more masudar, more like with an order, more with Torah laws, specifically to like Chabad, which is it's not your regular Orthodox. It's a very extreme Orthodox. Um, it doesn't seem like it's
Chabad
extreme.
is like, to me, the least extreme of the Orthodox.
Oh, that's because all the Orthodox will tell you that like there's like regular Orthodox people, and they'll tell you Chabad is like the most extreme because we're keeping laws further to the further extent than is needed.
Yeah,
We're
but
taking things on ourselves that
the
are
the Haredi are the hat people, right?
yeah, we're not that far off. You know that the Rebbe before the previous Rebbe was wearing the same hat.
Well, right, but
It's only
they
in the
believe
past 100 years that that's not even 100 years that that's changed.
fair. Yeah. But yes, I mean that makes sense. Religion across the board ebbs and flows. When things are good, people don't typically lean on religion. When things are bad or looking down, or people need direction, especially as social media has exploded over the last decade, you know, there's more. I don't know if chaos is the right word, but people are uncertain. People are looking for something that is more structured. Um, and so,
Real
religious
connection,
organizations,
maybe.
connection, yeah, religious organizations, whether that's a local Christian university organization or Chabad or even Hillel to some degree, although I imagine Hillel is maybe not doing so well right now. Maybe they are. I don't know. I don't know anything about them. But
They're not
Chabad,
hurting.
yeah,
They're not thriving
Chabad,
the same way. They're not growing the same way that
that Chabad is, yeah. I mean,
right.
Chabad is welcome to all people, to all Jews, to even non-Jews who are interested in maybe becoming Jewish. Um, the Torah, I think it's the Torah says something like 30 plus times, the convert is to be treated as any other Jew, or maybe even to a higher degree to some extent.
Mhm.
Um, and so Chabad being
By the
so,
way, that's a tricky place. And Chabad, it's a very sometimes difficult role to play because that law doesn't come into place until they've actually done the conversion. So while they're trying to convert, the role of Chabad is
ah,
not to convert them. And it's very important. We're not a
that's what I love about
proselytizing
Judaism.
religion.
We're not trying
Well,
to, exactly.
exactly. We
That's
don't
what I
want
love
you to
about
become a
Judaism. We're not
Jew.
trying to
You're an
convert
idiot. You
anyone.
think you want to become a Jew? You're an idiot. Don't become a Jew. We don't
Yeah,
want you. You
right.
don't want it.
Yeah.
We don't want you. You don't want it.
You have
Even
to
if you
really
think you
want
want
it.
it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
Which
after that
is what
point,
I like.
after they finish the conversion, then Chabad is you're a Jew just 100% as anyone else. We're going to treat you the
Right.
same way. While you're not a Jew, there's the seven mitzvahs of that were given to Noah, and
Yeah.
that is the thing that Chabad is very very big. The Rebbe is always very big. You have to teach them these laws. If they are doing these laws, okay, shkoyach. There's nothing more that you need to do with them. Like
Right.
if they're keeping these laws, they're perfect. They're a
Right.
perfect person in your eyes. They don't need to become Jewish. They don't need to do anything Jewish.
Right.
Like it's
Accepting of all peoples, assuming they
exactly.
drink these laws, that's what I liked about Judaism as a whole. But Chabad, the more that I went to the Chabad on campus when we were younger, or even Chabad here, we've had people who bring other folks from the base, the military base, who are just interested in Judaism. They don't know anything about it. Well, what's a great place to go learn? Chabad is fantastic. And from my perspective, now
Yeah.
for people who are interested, it is really jumping in the deep end. of observance and religiousness. And so maybe a reform shul is kind of like dipping your toes in a little bit. Not my cup of tea, but whatever. If I'm introducing somebody to Judaism, Chabad is probably not where I would start. But to show people what Judaism is, how accepting everybody is, and almost every shul is like this, right? They are willing to take in anybody who needs help, right? And so whether that's help in Judaism or help in other ways, Judaism is about helping your neighbor. It is about making the world a better place. And whether that's by following the 7 Noahide laws or Noahide laws, or somebody who is truly interested in Judaism and wants to convert, we'll gladly take you in with open arms, but we're not going to ask you. we're not going to ask you, which is what I like about it, or try to force you. As you said, we're actually going to maybe stiff arm you a little bit and make you fight through the stiff arm to show that this is something you want to do.
Yeah. So I would say along those same lines, it seems like you're saying opposite things of what you said before. You said before that like assimilation and intermarriage, while they're not good, and while this is more prevalent with cultural Jews, or people who call themselves cultural Jews, people who may not who don't value Torah, don't value Jewish law, and things like that, that they see Judaism as being like a sort of identity that they can put on and take off as need be, but not necessarily a driving force in their lives. So it seems like you're saying that Jews who are into Torah or value Torah are stronger and have a longevity of sorts. That like you said before, it's the Orthodox Jews are the ones who keep carrying us from generation to generation to generation. As Jews assimilate out, marry out, no longer become Jewish, don't marry Jews, so they don't have Jewish children, or they just don't have children at all, or don't value that sort of thing, don't value marriage, don't value the family life. They slowly go away. And it can happen to an Orthodox Jew, can become secular, and the same thing can happen. And also the opposite, secular Jew can become more religious or more observant and really value Torah and start to live a life that's more aligned with that sort of thing, even if they're not necessarily all the way in, but they have a value. They see the Torah as being something valuable that they want to have in their lives, even if it's not to the same extent, like you and me. I would say you're wrapping tefillin, you're doing things, you're learning a lot. I would say you're doing more than the average person because you have a deep intrinsic value of education and Torah and Judaism in your life, and you want to give that on to your grandkids. Would you say it's more likely for someone like you or me who values Torah and this longevity of Judaism, is it more likely that you and I are going to have Jewish grandchildren and great-grandchildren than someone who's assimilated or intermarried and doesn't have those same sort of values, doesn't care to be as educated or be as involved or care about Torah law as much?
I would say that, well, for many reasons, it is more likely that you and I would maybe have that, and it's even far more likely that you do rather than I do. I still live in America. You live in Israel. Oh. Judaism is everywhere in Israel. It's the Jewish state, right?
Actually, you'd be surprised. It's a lot of people that are not observant. But you're gonna end up being around other Jews, so you're gonna end up with Jewish grandchildren, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
So it is even far more likely, assuming I don't move to Israel, far more likely that you have Jewish grandchildren than me. But either way, it is imperative, the way that our grandparents did, to make sure that a Jewish education is provided to our kids and to our grandkids. Now, it's more difficult for me because I don't live in Israel. It's more difficult for me because I'm not a Chabad Orthodox Jew, right? Like it is just difficult if you are not Orthodox to continue to pass those things down. Not impossible. I mean, arguably, our grandparents were not Orthodox Jews. Their parents were not Orthodox Jews, I don't think.
They would be considered Orthodox Jews, actually, most of them.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
To be considered quote unquote Orthodox, you have to keep kosher and keep Shabbat. That's it.
Okay, all right. Well,
So
from
from
that perspective, yeah, I'm
the
definitely not Orthodox, but like it is just to pass those things down. It is on every Jewish generation, regardless of observance levels, to make a conscious effort to do those things. Now, when you're an Orthodox Jew, those things are interwoven into every aspect of your life. When you are not an Orthodox Jew, we have to take extra steps to make sure that our children and our children's children know that they're Jewish and know that they have the privilege of having Torah in their life, and that that is a guiding principle. It is the thing that connects all Jews. And so it
arguably your grandchildren will be stronger, if that's the case, in their Jewish identity and desire to be Jewish than my grandchildren.
right. So like from my perspective, those every Jew is a Jew, right? But like my grandchildren theoretically will have to work very hard to make sure that they know that they're Jewish. And I will have to work to make that. My kids, their parents will have to work to make sure that they know that. Every aspect of your life is interspersed with Torah and Judaism. Like
Right.
my kids won't likely, unless they see you and they're like, I want to be like my Uncle David. They won't be like, hey, like this is what I want to do. And they may.
Right.
And they will gladly get my support from that, the way our parents have happily supported you in your journey.
Right.
It just depends. But when you are a cultural or secular Jew, or whatever word you would like to use to describe yourself other than Orthodox, if you're an other than Orthodox Jew, you have to work harder, especially outside of the state of Israel, I think, to make sure that your children are aware that they have the privilege of Torah. Now, what Chabad has done, I think, has made that accessible to everybody, regardless of observance levels, which I think is incredible, because I don't remember having that growing up. I remember seeing Orthodox Jews growing up and be like, those are those weirdos over there, especially in Squirrel Hill, where I'm like, I don't want anything to do with them. But
Mm-hmm.
over the last, I'm 30 now, over the last 15 years, it has, like, Chabad has become on the forefront of things, the forefront of the Jewish movement. They've arguably become the face of Judaism.
Google right now, Judaism, Chabad.org is the very first thing to show
Yes,
up.
yes.
Yeah.
And so, when you're that face of Judaism, I think you set an example for other Jews, regardless of their observance levels. Like that is, to me, or the Chabad and Orthodox Judaism is the standard to strive for. And even Orthodox Chabad Jews are striving to become like the Rabbi, or to get on his level of spirituality. There he is. Always watching.
Always watching.
And so, all that to say that regardless of your observance levels, yes, your children are more likely to be more observant. Your grandchildren are statistically likely to be more observant. Mine are statistically likely to be less. And other Jews that maybe, aren't as, not that I'm overly observant, but far more culturally Jewish than I am, or leaning that way, are going to have to work even harder to make sure that their children feel that Jewish identity.
100%.
And while I'm not like a huge fan of like reform services and reform movements and all those things, they still teach Torah. They still, to some degree. I've never been to like a truly like reform, like New Age type service or like synagogue and like learned what they're teaching. But from my perspective, theoretically, they're supposed to be teaching Torah. Now their interpretation, they might not follow Rambam, or Maimonides or any of those.
Any of the commentaries.
Or any of the commentaries, which
right.
I don't necessarily agree with, but they, for better or worse, are still allowing Jews to feel Jewish. Now, if reform like Judaism wasn't there, maybe we lose all of those people. Maybe not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know. We don't live in that world. We don't live in that alternate universe where Reform Judaism doesn't exist, or even conservative Judaism, right?
yeah. Right.
Um, and so some of those Jews we're going to lose. Some of those Jews are going to become Chabad when they go to college, and some of those Jews are going to maintain the status quo that they've always learned.
Yep.
Um, it ebbs and flows, and I think that in times of uncertainty, as we've seen, like you said, in the last 10 years of Chabad growing and more Jews flocking to Chabad, the reform movement is at least Judaism light to some degree, but is giving those Jews the opportunity to go to Chabad when they're in college. They're giving them at least some level of base educational understanding. And Chabad can step in when they're in college and they're maybe trying to find their own path of something more. You can say, hey,
They're
look
doing
at us.
CT now also, even before.
Yeah,
Now CT
CTN
is
or
even bigger than Chabad on campus. It's
right,
thousands,
right.
thousands and thousands worldwide.
Yes.
Thousands. It's an
And then you've got
unprecedented amount.
CYP. Like
They took
Chabad,
over
Chabad
They took
has
over Times Square. It's insane.
yeah, I saw Chabad has found its way into the nooks and crannies of Judaism everywhere,
I
which is
think
incredible.
the whether times are good or whether times are bad, I think people crave one thing in particular, and that's an authentic experience, an authentic connection.
Yes.
And I think Chabad has really touched, or the Rebbe has really pulled out that aspect of Yiddishkeit that every single person feels a connection to. Someone who's authentic, truly like someone who's able to be outside of themselves fully, totally, the way that the Rebbe was,
Yes.
and create other leaders who emulate that or want to emulate that, create other authentic connections for everyone else.
Yes.
And this sort of influencer experience across the board is sort of why people feel now even such a connection to the Rebbe, even though they've never personally met the Rebbe.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So along those lines, I want to ask you, what's your vision for the kind of impact you'd like to leave on the world?
Oh, it's my vision for the kind of impact I want to leave on the world. I think ultimately the impact I would like to leave is maybe not anything that's physical. I don't want to leave like a Chabad center named after me. I don't want to
You
leave.
can if you want.
I
Donate
yeah, thank you.
$1
Yeah, if I
million
ever make
dollars.
enough money. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's more about the it's like the impact our Zadie had, right? So when he died, when he passed, there were like hundreds of people who showed up to the funeral that our dad and his brothers had never met before, but he had this impact on their lives that nobody ever knew about. Um, he probably didn't even know, to be fair. But always living life in such a way that you are trying to help others and those around you, whether they realize it or not. Giving back in the community. He probably gave somebody a pair of pants when they needed a pair of pants for an interview, and they got a job, and he never talked to him again, or they never talked to him again. Um, you know, I personally don't need to understand the level of impact that I've had or not had, for that matter, on somebody's life. But if I can live my life in such a way that those who I have met or even interacted with or even smiled at one time on the street passing by, and that has positively impacted, hopefully, the vast majority of the people that I have talked to or interacted with in any such way. That is the legacy, I suppose, that I would like to leave. It's more about tikkun olam, repairing the world, ensuring that I leave the world a better place than it was when I was born, I guess, or found it. I guess I found it when I was born. It found me, maybe, I don't know. Leaving the world a better place than it was, in March of 1995. And it might not be overall a better place, but if I can make it better for the people that I have interacted with, then that's all I care about.
What's one small action that anyone can take to bring more light into the world?
One small action,
Could be a big action, any action.
giving tzedakah, donating to charity.
I'll put the link somewhere.
Yeah, put the link up there now. That's when the link pops up, or in the comments, like donate the Chabad Hadera. at this link on Zephy, Um, tzedakah is I think one of the biggest ones from my perspective. It's one of the biggest mitzvahs you can do, whether that's through money or giving back via your time or your actions. Um, that's I think one small thing to do. Pick up a piece of trash that you see on the street and throw it away. Something as small as that. Um, Start recycling instead of just throwing everything in the trash. I don't know. That's a little bit more, depending on what country you're in, it can be a bit bigger of a lift. In Italy, they've got like 8 different recycling cans or something ridiculous. Uh Put a mezuzah up, wrap the fill-in, say the Shema once a day. There are many things that, I mean, saying the Shema once a day takes 5 seconds, maybe 15 if you really get animated about it. Um, there are a number of small things that anybody can do to help make the world a better place every day. It just depends. Maybe you listen to a podcast on your drive to work about Hasidus or Torah. I started doing that. It's been great.
Who did you listen to so far?
I listened to. Let me look.
Chase Taub, Yossi Paltiel.
Chase Taub has got his podcasts are like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Every day that he does a lecture with people, or I'm like, this is crazy. There's Daily Tanya, which is Rambam.
Yeah, that's good.
Who's the other guy? Who's this?
Yossi Jacobson, YY Jacobson.
Go to episode. EJSNY. This guy sounds very welcome back to breakfast on the class. Who's this guy?
I don't know.
There's another rabbi that I started listening to. He sounds very, very New York, very New Jersey. So
Joyce, yeah, coffee, yeah.
It's a Torah State of Mind is the name of
it. A play on the New York State of Mind.
I suppose so. Yeah,
that's funny.
But I like a lot of what he says. The podcasts are 35 minutes long. If you listen to 1.5 speed, it seems more like you're having a conversation with somebody. So right. I'm sure that when somebody listens to this podcast, they're going to listen to it on 1 speed and be like, oh my God, they're talking so fast. A lot of the podcasts that I listen to are like, hey, how are you? And it's like, oh my goodness, I just talk normal,
Right.
So I've listened to a number of different podcasts, or at least added them to my rotation. I listen to a lot of non-Torah related podcasts as well. But, being able to, Judaism Unbound is another one that I think I've not quite delved into, but I follow it right now, and I'll give it a shot for a couple episodes and see if I enjoy the way that they speak. I try to listen to things that I might not agree with, but it's important to get that differing perspective. And so
if you want to listen to a slow Torah class, Rabbi Gordon, doing the daily Chumash, the daily it's on Chabad.org. You can find it. Or on
tell them to put it on Apple Podcasts or something, or Spotify.
You can download the Chabad.org app, the daily study app. It's there. You just
all right.
Plays in the background, same way as a podcast. I have to listen to it on 2 speed, otherwise I can't handle it.
I don't understand how people can talk so slowly. I enjoy the deliberateness of what you're trying to say, but like let's speed it up a little bit, guys.
All right. This has been really beautiful. Let's end with if you could bless every person listening to this podcast with one thing, what would that blessing be?
Oh my. To me, everything is based on, your health and your happiness. And so not oh my goodness. What's the prayer for healing?
Refuah.
Yeah. So, everybody is hurting in some way, whether that be physically or mentally or spiritually. And so, I would like to pray for everybody to, have healing in any of those 3 ways or more than that. Because, if you're not feeling whole or healing, it is difficult to do many other things in your life. And so, praying for everybody's health and happiness, that is to me the base. And then, and even if it's not, maybe praying, wrapping tefillin or praying for your spiritual health, allows for everything else to blossom from there. And so whether they, I guess I don't know, I've never prayed for anybody before, I suppose. The health and happiness of all of the listeners, all of the Jews, all of the good people in the world, is probably the prayer that I would start with.
Amen. Beautiful.
This episode of the Tattoo Rabbi podcast is sponsored in honor of our hostages. May they return home soon. If you would like to sponsor a future episode in honor or in dedication of someone, you can contact me at tattooRabbi@gmail.com, or you can message me on Instagram at tattoo_rabbi.
Tattoo